Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. It's Mike's Talks and Thoughts here. We're back again with another TV series review, and today we are finally at Better Call Saul. We've been waiting for Better Call Saul to finish up so we can do the series review for it. Of course, I have the Breaking Bad series review done. That was the first one that I did on my channel. If you like Better Call Saul and of course Breaking Bad, definitely check that one out in the description below. I've also done a lot of other videos for Better Call Saul, including a characters tier list and the ranking of all these season 6 episodes. Again, if you like either of those, definitely check them out down in the description below. I have links to those videos for you guys if you're a Better Call Saul fanatic like I am. But today here we're going to be following the traditional TV series format that I do for you guys, giving a little bit of a synopsis on the show, my thoughts on the overall series, one show recommendation, and then also the tier ranking for Better Call Saul here today. Better Call Saul, man, show that just took the world by storm in 2022. Absolutely amazing. And now that it's concluded, we can see the entire story in full here and see how each of the pieces are connected here. And with that, we'll go into the aspects of those pieces that I really like about Better Call Saul. So starting here with the synopsis for Better Call Saul. So in Better Call Saul, this is the story of the transformation from a guy named Jimmy McGill to Saul Goodman. Of course, Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad here. It basically follows his life and transformation of how he became Saul Goodman here. That's the main goal of the show, but you also get a lot of other great aspects of the show. You find out more about characters like Mike and Gus, and even new characters introduced into the story that have impact in Jimmy's life before he became Saul Goodman. Of course, it is a prequel to Breaking Bad here, taking place in 2002 to around 2004 time in the Better Call Saul timeline, where Breaking Bad takes place around 2008 and runs roughly around till 2010. Better Call Saul ran for 6 seasons with 63 total episodes, one more than Breaking Bad, its counterpart, and it was created by Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould here. So now that I've went over a quick synopsis for you guys, I will be going into a little bit of spoilers here. So if you've not seen Better Call Saul in its entirety, skip until the end of the video where I give my one show recommendation and the tier ranking, and then you can come back into this, and when you have finished all Better Call Saul, definitely watch my entire thoughts on it. And I'd like to hear your thoughts down below in the comments on just your overall thoughts of how Better Call Saul was for you. So the one thing that I want to address right away with Better Call Saul is just the amount of character-driven moments that there are in the show. There are so many great character development moments and learning more about the development of Jimmy McGill to Saul Goodman, and also learning more about Mike and Gus, and even side characters in Breaking Bad. We see more on Huel and Tuco and many, many more characters like that. One in particular that I really like is Mike's story. You know, in Breaking Bad, we get to see how Mike is, this grumpy old guy who is in the game. He's always been a badass, and it's really shown in this as well. And in season 1, we see him in a toll booth here, running a toll booth, and we see the origins of Mike's family and why he's in the game to start with. We find out that he was a cop in Philly for 30 years and how his son got killed, and it was indirectly caused by Mike being corrupt here. And his son, of course, being killed by 2 fellow officers who Mike ends up taking out here, which was one of the best moments from season 1, I think. And learning more about the I Broke My Boy monologue was amazing to see. Up there with his half measure, full measure monologue in Breaking Bad, some of the best work that he's ever done. And really shows you that Mike is in the game for his family here. Kind of like, Walter, starts out with saying, I'm in the game for the family. And then, of course, find out that he did it for himself in the end of Breaking Bad here. And then seeing Mike here, of course, actually doing it for his family, providing for them because he feels responsible for them. And of course, we see that in Breaking Bad with him and Kaylee, and now we get even more backstory of that. And then, of course, Jimmy McGill here. It's crazy to think just how far he's come from the Jimmy we see until the Saul Goodman we see in Breaking Bad. Saul Goodman, he's always known for his funny one-liners and his charisma and, just his charm and his sleazy attitude here, which we get some of that in the earlier seasons of Better Call Saul. Here we still can see the charisma here, and him just trying to make it. And really the main focus, especially for the first 3 seasons, is him trying to impress his brother here, Chuck. We get the battle, of course, between Jimmy and Chuck here. Chuck, of course, being a new Better Call Saul original character who we really didn't hear much about in Breaking Bad. Maybe a few references here and there to his brother. But for the most part, we had no idea who this was. And we see just early on how much Jimmy wants Chuck to admire him and to appreciate him and be proud of him. And when it doesn't go that way and Chuck's just jealous because, of the whole Slip and Jimmy moment, of course, the "you're not a real lawyer," and it leads Jimmy down this dark path of having to go against his brother. And it's a really interesting dynamic to see. I personally don't like Chuck. I hate Chuck. I think he's like one of the worst characters, but he's pretty well written here, which is something that you always want to see in villains. We also see early on Jimmy's development and conning here. We were wondering how long has Saul been in the game, and pretty much since he was a little kid. In Chuck's chicanery monologue here, of course, him saying couldn't keep his hands out of the cash drawer ever since he was 9. So he's been doing this ever since he was a little kid, man. He's just mastered it, and of course the whole wolves and sheep speech here from one of the customers really makes Jimmy change his entire life and become the wolf instead of the sheep. And it's just, like I said, great to see the transformation from him. In the first episode here, we see how scared he is, and he can still use, though, his charm of talking here when he gets into a con with these skater guys and ends up going south, and Tuco makes an appearance here. We see how Saul is able to, or Jimmy rather, is able to use his voice and, of course, talking out of the situation. We, of course, get a reference to that later on with Lalo, which was absolutely beautiful to see. I also love the world building here in Better Call Saul, really expanding out and showing us, like I said, even more to this universe. We think that we know everything from the Breaking Bad story, and we just get a lot more interesting new characters and interesting new dynamics of people who played such a big role in the world building for this show early on. And it's really great to see it. Again, one of the best world building aspects in the show. I think they did a really great job in the prequel here, building upon that. And as I said before, this is a very character-driven story. Breaking Bad's very known for the action moments and the big shootout scenes and stuff like that, but Better Call Saul really didn't need to do that. They had that at points with the cartel side of the story here in Better Call Saul, but they didn't need to have these crazy outlandish moments. What really made Better Call Saul so good was just the writing of these characters and being able to connect with the emotional aspects of these characters and just following them through this journey and learning more on what makes them the characters that they become in Breaking Bad. And even, like I said, a lot of these new Better Call Saul original characters, they do such a great job with them. We get to see Nacho Varga and Nacio Varga as Lalo Salamanca, 2 of the best Better Call Saul original characters here, who were in a throwaway line in Breaking Bad, and we see how big of a role they play. Nacho, of course, in the game, and someone who wants to get out of the game and protect his father here, and he's sort of seen as like the Jesse of the story here, someone who's in the game, but he has morals and he wants to do the right thing. And we see just how he gets caught up and played in this game between the cartel and Gus here, and it all leads up to him guaranteeing his father's safety and him giving one of the best speeches ever to Hector after he was trying to kill Hector here. And of course, just absolutely great. They did such a great job of tying Nacho's story so well together. And then Lalo here. Lalo was an amazing character as well. Someone who's very charismatic. Someone who, the Vivid Kiwi, another great Better Call Saul channel, compared to someone like Negan on The Walking Dead. Someone who is very charismatic and has that great charming personality here that Lalo brings for a villain here. Someone who just feels like so smart and someone who has so many great moments in the show. Every time that Tony Dalton was on screen, he stole the show. So those were two great original characters, and then probably the biggest character that a lot of people are now going to connect with the Better Call Saul Breaking Bad universe is Kim Wexler here. Kim Wexler, of course, being the lawyer at HHM. We learned more about HHM, of course, in the first few seasons. Of course, Howard Hamlin and Chuck McGill's law firm here. And Kim here is someone who's really great as well. We just think that she's just this normal person working at HHM, and we see a lot more on her backstory and how she's with Jimmy, and this is how broken he is and how he puts up this front of Saul Goodman because of the heartbreak that he went through with Kim Wexler here. And Kim was a great character. She had a lot of great moments in the show, and she just got better and better and better through each and every season here. We learn the origins also as well, why she likes Connie and how her and Jimmy are kind of a match made in heaven for each other. So that's great, but you see how toxic they are as well. Their relationship is also very toxic, and like I said, the Better Call Saul writers just do a great job of building these characters and the interactions that they have becoming so important later on in the show, and building on these characters, feeling like just the importance of the character's performance here just absolutely drives the series forward and makes it so good personally for me. I talked about already the origin stories here that we get told with Jimmy and Mike, and the one thing that I also really like about this show is the dynamic between Mike and Gus. We see how Mike just randomly finds Gus because he's going after Hector Salamanca after Hector Salamanca, of course, gets involved in the whole Tuco situation, of course, and Nacho, and we see just how each little event leads to something bigger and grander in the story, and that's something that I just absolutely love. The smaller pieces building to bigger pieces here, and like I said, seeing Gus and Mike's story was amazing to see. One of the best aspects of Better Call Saul, and I also really like the episode foreshadowing or episode meaning and references here. So in the first season here, besides Alpine Shepherd Boy, and that is only because they couldn't get the rights to use Jello, every single episode it ends in an O here. In season 2, if you put together the first letter of each episode, it spells Fringsback. Just a lot of great foreshadowing I like in the earlier seasons that they were able to do that and have these little patterns. Also in season 6, for the whole Better Call Saul timeline, they did blank and blank for the episode titles here. Very, very great to see. And as I mentioned, Mike and Gus's story here, building these smaller pieces leading to bigger pieces. That is something they really harped on for season 6 here. Of course, the scheme of Howard Hamlin here was one of my favorite aspects and probably the most shocking moment in the show. That was one thing that Better Call Saul also did so well, and what made me really love this show was, they built smaller pieces leading to big pieces. These little schemes and cons of Howard Hamlin that I know a lot of people felt like dragged on, but I personally loved each and every one of them that I saw, and leading on to this huge payoff that paid off so well between Howard and, of course, Lalo. Howard confronting them after screwing him in the case for the Sandpiper money here and conning him and ruining his reputation, and then seeing Lalo, of course, walk in after he's having his battle with Gus, and shooting Howard was one of the craziest moments in TV for me. Definitely one of the most shocking moments that I saw. You saw it coming once he pulled out the gun, but it was still so shocking when it happened. And then, of course, the following episode, you're on your edge of your seat with point and shoot, and just they did such a great job of building tension in this and building up the small pieces to big pieces that lead to amazing payoff. Now here, let's address the finale here. So I have talked about the finale a little bit on the channel so far, but not much. So Saul Gone, I think, was a beautifully done episode here, and for me, it was just a great realization of Jimmy McGill in his entire life, because we get to see how, of course, he's Gene Takovic after the whole Breaking Bad, a new identity, and we see how he's put away, of course, in jail, and being Saul Goodman, of course, he's able to talk down his life plus 190-year sentence down to 7.5 years, and he can run with it. But we see that in a previous episode, him and Kim, of course, had that emotional conversation here, which again, of course, builds on the emotion and the characters on this story. That's what makes this show so well. I think that the characters are like a 10 out of 10 because of how well they can just interact and show so much emotion and just the connections that they have. And her turning herself in for the whole Howard Lalo situation, which I just explained. And it realizes for Saul how he can change and how he can, admit to everything. So we see him in court, he dresses up as Saul Goodman, of course, with the flashy suits. And we see him, trying to make this one final stand here for himself. And, being the way he is, putting all the blame off of him and onto Walter. And then flips the switch because he wants Kim to be there. He basically finds a way for Kim to be there in the court, and the connection that they had for so many years after being apart for so many as well. We see how he owns up and atones for his sins. This was a line that was very prominent in the first season with Jimmy saying to Howard, "You will atone."
And you will atone.
And it leads to the amazing foreshadowing in the finale where Saul atones for his actions. He owns up to everything, and it just feels so right. He's not going to sleaze his way out of this. He's going to own up. He's going to admit to everything. And, he's more free in jail than he ever was as Gene. And we get to see how the people love him. The Better Call Saul chant in the bus. He's going to do so great in prison with the law work that he can do for people, getting people off early, helping innocents as well because of the innocent people who get put away in jail. He's going to just help them so much, and he's more free and he's more alive than he's ever been. Sort of like what Walt was. Walt was alive when he was, of course, cooking, and he died in a meth lab where he lives, and Saul, living for his lawyer work, which he's going to thrive with in prison here. And I love the symbolism as well with Kim and Jimmy, just that little cigarette, the only light in his life, and showing, again, of course, callbacks to the first season when they did that. They didn't need to show words. You could see by on their face and just the way they act, how they feel, and seeing, of course, the finger pointing guns when Saul or Jimmy did that as going in as Saul to Kim at the end of season 4, and of course Kim doing that back to him at the end of season 5, and now seeing it at the end of season 6. It's a great running gag throughout the show, and of course just builds on everything that I love about this show. The characters make Better Call Saul, and I think that without the characters being as well written as they are, not sure how much better the show would have been for it. I think that that's what makes the show so well. A lot of people, they complain about it's not action filled like Breaking Bad. It's not like Breaking Bad. It's not. It's a lawyer show, but it has so many layers. And if you pay attention to everything and throughout the story, you get the overall picture and you get the great character development that I think a lot of us like to see. But there are some dislikes that I have with the show. Very minimal here. Mainly just some of the characters, of course. Chuck, Chuck, of course, very unlikable, and didn't really like that about Chuck. And of course, the first couple seasons, a little bit slower, especially season 2, but a little bit slow and really treading on a lot of the stuff that season 1 did. But other than that, for the most part, this is a amazing show here. So now moving into the one show recommendation here. For the one show recommendation, this was very tough because, of course, with Breaking Bad, I recommended Better Call Saul because if you've seen Breaking Bad, you have to see Better Call Saul. And I'm assuming if you've watched Better Call Saul, you've seen Breaking Bad, getting all those Easter eggs and great cameo appearances that didn't overshadow Better Call Saul, but just made it better and gave it some more life for Breaking Bad, of course, in the universe. But for me, the one show recommendation I'm going to give is Barry here. Barry here is another great one that has a lot of action-filled moments as well at points like Better Call Saul does, but it's very character-driven and very character-oriented, of course, with Bill Hader playing Barry Berkman here and seeing his transformation and his character development with his acting teacher and his girlfriend here. It's a really great show. I think that if you like Better Call Saul, Barry is right up your alley. And now here for the tier ranking for Better Call Saul. This one, when I was watching it up until season 5, it wasn't the elite tier, but season 6 for me, being personally my favorite season, bumped it up to me to the GOAT tier, and Better Call Saul is the GOAT tier here. It's in the GOAT tier, one of the few shows that I have in the GOAT tier. I think that this was just amazing show. It's on par with Breaking Bad. If you say it's better than Breaking Bad, I cannot argue with you there. I personally still prefer Breaking Bad, but they're neck and neck. They could go either way. They're both on the GOAT tier for me. They're both amazing. If you're at this point in the video and you haven't seen Better Call Saul and you've seen Breaking Bad, definitely go watch Better Call Saul. You will not regret it. It was something that is just really amazing and tied the story so well together like a bow. So yeah, that's going to do it here for the video. Like I said, down in the description below, more Better Call Saul content. I also have my Patreon and my TV database linked down there as well. And take care, everyone, and peace out.